Hello there, people. If you can hear a chainsaw in the background, I can't do anything about it. But I got called out, and Kent, you idiot, you have to tell us about your top 5 worst operating systems. I couldn't find 5, I could only find 4. Why? Because I'm going to do something that a lot of people have not done, at least the video where I got called out on has not done. I'm giving you some premises, I'm giving you some feedback why I'm saying what I'm saying. Basically, I'm laying down the ground rules. I'm saying this is why these are in here. Is it an opinion? What am I going for? So here's the criteria for the 4 worst operating systems to ever, well, not ever, but yeah, but the four worst operating systems ever. 1, it has to be a consumer operating system. So that means that if it's a server OS, it's out of the way. If it's a development branch, it's out of the way. If it's a demo, tech demo, out of the way. You get the idea here. It also has to be a somewhat known OS. So there are a lot of, like, if we go back to the 90s, there are hundreds of small, little, unique operating systems that did good or bad, and even in the 2000s, but because they were like really, really niche and unique, they don't go under this category. A good one could be Temple OS, Minute OS, Sky OS, to some extent even BOS, even though I would still consider BOS a mainstream OS because it was almost being pre-installed on Sony computers back in the day. So there was a lot of knowledge about it and stuff like that. So again, it has to be consumer OS. And it has to have a production. It has to have been in production. So now you know why I'm saying this. And I am giving some jabs at people here because I'm a little bit tired of people just saying, this is this, and then they don't give you any like criteria why they come up with this opinion or why they're saying this. They just saying something, this is my top 5, top 10, and then they're just giving you 10, blah, 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 and you don't know what is the basis of what they're saying, because sometimes it's obvious, and sometimes it's not obvious. So let's go into it here. I have 4 OSs, and I could probably talk for years and years about it. Windows ME, the video that spurred this video, they talked about Windows Millennium Edition or Multimedia Edition, you know, sweet boy has many names. Windows Blue Screen Edition is someone else also called it. I don't think anyone that knows about computer operating systems, and especially people that lived and used Millennium Edition back in the day, would say that this was a good system. Was it as bad as people say today? Not really, but even for the time, it was a bad OS. What I see a lot of people do to this day is they compare Millennium Edition to Windows 10 and 11 or Linux today, which is another pet peeve of mine, is that if you are going to talk about operating systems from the past, you cannot compare them today. You cannot even compare Linux from 1995 with Linux from 2004 and Linux from 2015 and Linux from 2023. Even for the time, Windows ME was an OS that people installed to then immediately downgrade to Windows 98, or I was about to say 85, 98, or Windows 95 if they already had that. It was universally known as, at the point of release, this was like, the Linux people say that the year of the Linux desktop, this was one of the times where people were actually like, maybe this is the time. The sad reality is that in 1999, 2000, 2001, Linux was almost worse than ME. I'm going out and say it. Linux was the only thing Linux had that ME didn't have, and but some other operating system didn't have, was protected memory. That was the only thing it had. It did multitasking worse than any other operating system. Fun fact here is that OS2, Windows, BOS, macOS did multitasking better than Linux up till about 2008 or something like that. The next one here, Windows Vista. So you may say, well, Windows Vista was actually really good, it was really stable. Yeah, but again, we are looking at the time this OS came out. So this is not on my top 5 OSs because it was a unstable mess, or it was, it didn't run, well, that's why it's on my top 5, but because it didn't run on the hardware, basically. But it was not because it was unstable, it was not because it was unusable. It was for the fact that when this came out, Windows did something that today was something you should not be doing. They were not looking at the hardware of today. They were like, let's build a system for the future. But that meant that when we are building a system for the future, the current hardware cannot really run it. which is a really bad thing, and why nobody does it, and why Windows stopped doing it. But Windows Vista, when you ran it on really appropriate hardware, was actually really fucking good and had a lot of new technologies in it. But because most consumers did not have money for that kind of hardware, at least not for the first span of its life cycle, it was again like ME, a OS that people install or bought a computer with to then automatically go down to XP. And that's why it's in my top 4 worst operating systems. Like I said, I'm trying to give you context why that is, so you understand why I'm saying this. Would I say this was unusable? Kinda. But not for most, but not all. Was it unstable? No. Was it unsecure? No. It was just a matter of resources of hardware, which a lot of people could not afford. Another one here, this is one of Esnik's really good favorites, and one of my favorites, OS2. Like, I'm not saying, because, so again, context. Why am I saying OS2? Because OS2 Warp 4, I think it was a really good system. But when OS2 Warp 4 came out, it was already outdated. So when I'm saying OS2 here, because it's such a niche operating system, but it was in production and was sold as a production unit and was competing with Windows and was known in the Windows 95 area as a better Windows than Windows. But it only lasted for about a few years and then it went downhill. So I'm bundling OS2 together in one big chunk and say, comparatively, even though there was a little bit of a good releases, mostly OS2 was not a good operating system. Was it because it was unstable? No. It's the same reason for why Vista was bad. It didn't run really well on a lot of hardware. And here in this case here was actually just the support of hardware. A lot of computers did not support Windows Warp. I had it one on my computer, another one didn't support it. There was a lot of things you couldn't get to work on Warp, even though it was compatible with Windows. It was Windows 3.11 applications it was compatible with, some Windows 95 if I'm not mistaken. Please correct me, all you nerds and gurus, about OS2 Warp there. But for the most part, like I said, OS2 was really good in the Windows 95 days if you wanted to run Windows 3.11 and older hardware, software, sorry. It had massive hardware issues, and there was somewhat of instability and crashes and stuff like that, but it was still regarded better than Windows 95 and 98, and even ME, of course. But it still had its issues. It was not like, it may be a little bit more stable than Windows 95, but you could run more on Windows 95 and 98. But if you wanted legacy support, this was probably the best one doing it. And a fun fact is that Microsoft actually developed OS2 for the vast period of time of OS2. Another fun fact is that when OS2 was good was when Microsoft developed it. When Microsoft stopped partnered with IBM and IBM took over the development, OS2 went downhill faster than fucking the Titanic. So yeah, it's a fun little thing that most people forget or don't know, and you have to have been there to know that. So again, I hope you understand why this was a bad operating system for the consumer, not for us nerds and geeks, because we could work around those quirks. Just this one here is going to angry everyone. Linux. Why the fuck are you saying Linux? Linux is the most stable operating system ever. It's the most secure operating system ever. It's run on supercomputers and servers and stuff like that. And I would say, you just proved my point. My computer is not a server. My computer is not a supercomputer. My computer is not in a corporate setting and corporate network. It is a home desktop. What did I say in the beginning? I was looking at operating systems that were available for the average consumer and looking at it from an average consumer, because the average consumer takes up the vast majority of computer usage. Okay, they are the biggest part of computer users. And for the average user, compared to any other operating system we have today, Linux is bad. It was bad compared to Windows in the 90s and Mac OS in the 90s. It was bad compared to Windows and Mac OS in the 2000s. It was bad compared to Windows and Mac OS in 2010s. And it's bad compared to Windows and Mac OS in the 2020s. Not because it's unstable. That's just one factor. You cannot use one factor to determine something is good or bad. You have to look at the package. So why do I say desktop Linux is in my top 4 worst operating systems ever for the average consumer and home desktop. For the same reasons why Vista was bad, for the same reasons why OS2 was bad. Is Linux great? Yes, if you know how to run it and you invest the time to learn it. Is Linux great for developers and coders? It's fucking amazing. I want to have its development children. If I was a woman, I would be feed me, Daddy Penguin. Feed me. You know, I would be like spreading my legs faster than you can say one. But that's not the target group we are looking at now, for today, because those are still a minority in the computing world. Is it great as a web server host? It's probably the best. You know, is it great as a file server? Among the best. Is it great as an Active Directory management server? Not really, but you get what I'm saying here. There's a lot of places where you could say Linux is great there and amazing there and comparable there, but on the desktop for the average consumer, no. Why? Hardware compatibility, software compatibility, software accessibility, and I could go on and on and on. You kind of get the idea here. If you compare the Linux desktop with today, there are still a lot of things that you can't run, both hardware and software. There are a lot of things on macOS you can't run, but not as many as with Linux. There's a lot of things on macOS that hardware, peripherals you can run on macOS, but not as many as Linux. And that is why, as a consumer, an average everyday user, it's the worst, or in the mix of the worst operating system too. In my top 4 worst operating system. If you are not an average computer user, if you are not an average Andy, it probably is an amazing system. Just like OS2 was an amazing system in the 90s for me, and BeOS was. But I am not a typical user. And you have to get out of your mindset. You that are angry right now and your testicle is fuming with rage. You are not the milestone of what a computer user is. It's what the majority is. And for the majority of people, Linux makes no sense and it's actually a hindrance to them. Does that mean that they can't run it? Because I hear a lot of people, well, the average consumer could live perfectly on Linux. I've said it many times myself. Yes, they can. The issue here is that the second they stepped out from anything than browsing the web, they make it into issues. They don't do that so much on Mac OS, if at all. They don't do that on Windows at all. And a lot of the issues is with peripheral support and software accessibility. Another pet peeve of mine is that someone goes up to a Linux nerd and say, I need Photoshop. Oh, GIMP. Brother, sister, broskies, I need Photoshop. Pesky, proprietary, subscription-based, use GIMP. You don't listen to them. They need Photoshop. For some fucking weird reason, they need Photoshop. Alternatives don't matter. Okay? I'm sorry to say it. If someone wants one thing, they don't want something else. If you go into a fucking bar, or let's say a restaurant, and you order a medium rare steak, and it comes out with fucking tofu or pasta bolognese, and they're like, it's meat. At least the pasta bolognese have meat in it. And you get your carbs, you get your proteins. It's just put together in a different way. It's an alternative to your medium rare steak. I'm like, I ordered a medium rare steak with potatoes. Yeah, but carbs, protein, meat, ingredients, sauce. It's the same. This is just better because the recipe is open. So you get what I'm saying here. If you want something, and you can't get it, you're not going to use it. And that's why Linux still, as an everyday desktop computer, it's the worst for most people. I hope I have explained myself correctly, because I will get Linux nerds yelling and screaming at me, because they think that I have now spent the majority of this video racking down on Linux. No, I spent the majority of this video talking about why I say Linux, because I know they will do it. Most Linux users cannot bear that someone thinks Linux don't fit everything. You have to get your head out of your ass, okay? Just because you like something don't mean everyone else will. And the statistic tells us that Linux is not there. Okay? All my debates I have with people Linux is that every time I say it's not good for something, they think it is because I think it's bad. No, Linux is amazing. It's just not amazing for everything. It may be for you, and that's fucking amazing for you. It's great for you. It has helped you or enlightened you. So please forgive me. See you all later. Bye bye.